22. Constance. A stairway to nowhere. I've been to my fair share of former spaghettis. They were kind of places that delighted showgirls and drew the fascination of rich potential suitors. So I assumed there had to be more to this empty cement room. I walked up to the one wall and looked at it closely, running my fingers across it, trying to find the hidden door. "Do you want me to show you?" asked Bill. His energy was still off, calmer but strange, almost easy. I shook my head. I didn't want to admit that these kinds of puzzles frustrate me, but I want to figure out nonetheless. The cold air from outside and helped me clear some of the excitement, and I was feeling really more focused now. I could do this. I took a step back when I realized there was no secret doors cut into the walls somehow, which only meant one thing. The wall is the door? Bill smiled, a knowing smile, and I sighed wearily, but smiled back. I had enjoyed smiling, knowing smiles around girls. Most of the time, it was just because one of those chorus girls would pretend not to know what a particular drink was, or food dish, so these young men would share their wisdom. But this time, at least, it meant something. It was a smile indicating that the Bills knew something that I did not. So then, I said to myself, I felt a little feeling of anger. Sometimes I feel like these kinds of moments, when I didn't understand something and someone else did. I pushed it down. It was silly to feel this way. He offered me to tell me. I was the one being stubborn now. I felt this need to prove that I knew the secret. Despite knowing the secret was a secret, that was the kind of purpose of secrets. It didn't help. He was up a step, literally looking down at me, leaning so comfortably on the newly post. Oh, of course. I stepped out to join him and gave his elbow a quick shove, and he slipped off the post with a "Hey!" I examined it. There was a hedge on the one side, clear as day now. I was looking for it. I pulled out the top of the post and swing open. Inside was a cover button, extremely shiny, right in the middle, right where it clearly made a thumb had pushed on it. So I pushed on it. There was a loud clank and then a rusty whirling sound. I turned quickly to watch as the wall opposite us slowly opened. I approached and examined it. It wasn't cement after all. It was a heavy metal painted gray to match the rest of the walls. "What purpose does it serve?" I asked it. "A second secret entrance?" "I assume this is where they met the hunch," replied Bill, joining me at the door. "They needed extra protections." "I suppose so," I said, looking to the empty gray room beyond the door. "There's more to go. Quite an adventure," said Bill as he walked into the room. I followed him. I was feeling a little nervous now, not as excited as before. Quite the adventure. We passed quickly through the empty plain room. I imagined, knowing what I knew now, that this room was used for storing goods before they were shipped out. We made our way to the large hole in the wall to our left and down near the other dark staircase. At the bottom we were greeted by the larger room. I looked up and saw rusty baskets hanging from the line that ran around the room, like a track from the model train set. Across from us there were giant tubs, and beside them tables overturned stools. A whole room felt ancient, like we had opened an ancient dust and ruin, except for the machine. "Isn't it incredible?" he asked it. "It's both terrifying and fascinating, don't you think?" I wasn't so sure about it. "What is it?" I asked it, staring at it. It was quite the opposite of everything else in the room. New, shiny, but covered in some dark spots here and there. It was completely modern and huge, not all like that old-fashioned but bootlegger setups. "Time has come," the warrior said, "to talk about many things," replied Bill, walking toward it. I followed him. "The forest?" I asked it, feeling a little concerned. He was sounding weird now, not giggy, not anxious. Now he was something almost mesmerized it. I noticed as he turned toward the machine a few more specks of black at the nape of his neck. Black spots. I gazed at the machine. Bill placed a hand on it, almost like he was touching the side of the giant animal. He was deep-breathed and slow, drawing his hand across the side of the machine toward the massive opening on one side. He placed a hand on one of the large gears and pushed it out gently. I wasn't sure why, but nothing moved. "From Alice Adventures in Wonderland. Have you read the book?" I asked it, still looking at the machine. I didn't want to admit that. I was not much a reader of fiction. The only stories I knew were the ones my parents read to us from a word copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare, when they did more for their own amusement than for ours. The books that interested me were the science ones, or rather, I suppose, One book I stole from school last year. I still believe I borrowed it. I knew someday I'll return it once I memorized it completely. "I know of it," I replied it. I was standing next to him now. But I didn't want to touch the machine. Something about it made me uncomfortable. Well, it's a poem from the book. The walrus and the carpenter take several young oysters for a walk along the beach. Odd, I replied. Perhaps odder still, why on earth he was telling any of this? Why was he acting so strange? It occurred to me that how dangerous we as his strangeness could be. The beginning of our night together had been such fun, but now he had turned like overripe fruit. I felt my defenses rise. Bill gazed at the machine. He looked like he was almost in trance. One could possibly say he's the man in love, but it was different somehow. Not love, but infatuation, obsession, perhaps. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk many of things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax. He turned the corner in the machine to where the large pipe curved downward, opening up the end. Bill bent over and stared into the large gaping mouth, almost struck his entire head in. Savages and kings. His voice echoed now a bit, and I took a small step backward. And why the sea is boiling hot, and water pigs have wings. He pulled his head out of the pipe, stood upright, and looked at me. And what on earth is this thing for? That's not part of your poem, I replied it. He shook his head. You should look here. I'm a mad scientist. What is that black stuff? I suddenly didn't want to. I was feeling more and more concerned for Bill. Besides that, I was quite intimidated by the machine, and the giant opening looked like it might bite my head off if I stuck it inside. But I couldn't tell Bill that. I didn't want him to react badly. At this point, I really had no idea how he would. I approached the mouth of the machine and bent my knees so I could look up inside it. It was completely black, like it had been painted, but it seemed wet, like it had only just been. I wasn't keen on touching the stuff, but I assumed it was paint of a deep black color, unlike any I've ever seen. A black so dark it felt like I was looking into the hole that fell down into the depths of the earth. A hole like Alice from her book. I knew that much. She fell for forever and ended a completely new world. I felt a shudder raising in me. I didn't want to fall down any holes today. I backed away and stood upright. It's paint. A very black paint. Like looking into moonless sky? Said Bill, grinning. I appreciate that he understood. I'd never seen anything like it. You should take a sample, he said, for your chemistry set. That spot deep inside me felt like something different then. Not fear or anger, but excitement. I don't have a vial with me. I wished then that Bill had given me some time to prepare, not be quite so needlessly with this visit. Then will we come back with one? I could hear my excitement echo back at me in Bill's voice. What is this machine? What is it for, Bill? I asked it. He shook his head. I have no idea. I came here with Mr. Connor to help fix it, but what it does? No one told me. The gent fellows have been so secretive. I thought maybe it was something to help with the plumbing at the large club, but the more I examine it, the more it looks like something that is meant to make something. Make something? Don't you think so? There was other tubes. There is no passage from one part to the other. It was all self-contained, except for this one exit. He indicated toward the pipe, or entrance, I said. Bill nodded. Maybe, he paused. It's a little funny. What is? I slowly started to walk around the machine. My feet were taking control of my body. My curiosity was getting the better of me. Are you? I thought, and then I thought, why are you hidden? Something Mr. Connor said. He talked about the monster. I thought it was a metaphor, but he seemed to imply it wasn't. You think they made the monster? I asked it. I was skeptical. When I arrived at the site, Bill was standing by. I too placed a hand on the giant gear toward the bottom of the machine. I looked at Bill. He looked, well, for a better word, scared. I don't think that's true, I said, trying to reassure him. He shrugged it and didn't say anything. I ran my fingers over the teeth of the gear, up and down and up and down. How does the rest of the poem go? I asked it, trying to make him feel a little better. I looked up at the machine. It rose so high when I was standing this close. It was overwhelming. There was a pipe here, large and widening toward the mouth of the machine like a constrictor. Oh, it was just goes on and more surety. Very typical, replied Bill, standing next to me, looking up as well. Oh, why does the sea is boiling hot? But of course that's not true, but what's the absurdity was then? Just a lie? What's the point of it? They eat all the oysters, said Bill. He was looking closely at the pipe. I don't understand, replied it. They invite the little oysters for a walk and then eat them. He tapped on the pipe, made a small hollow sound. He moved his hand up the pipe and tapped it again, the same sound. That's the point of the poem. Something about horrified me. I don't know, but it's what happens. Oh, I said, it's what happens.